The term military analyst is not a legally protected term. It's not like doctor. It's more like economist. You know, any asshole can start calling themselves one and fart out a vaguely plausible opinion on the current situation.
No, not the higher wages. Nose, noses, I don't want the higher wage. I am amazed how dumb people are and how you all fell for it, where you thought flooding the economy with immigrants, legal or not, and we're not necessarily anti-immigrant. Like, if there's a labor shortage or wages are way too high, if you could imagine such a thing, or if we want to bring in our the most talented to make them ours, fine, we'll poach the best. But when you dumbasses, I'm looking at you millennials, we're just like looking at Barack Obama's penis like, oh my God, I wish to caress it. What? Let everybody in? Although he actually did do a lot of deportations and all that. But the whole hate yourself and we are the world and it's our obligation as the United States to take care of everyone but our own. You're like, oh my God, I want to do the popular thing. And then you're wondering what happens when you let in, depending on, it has nothing to do with your status or whether you're legal or if you're an immigrant or not. If you increase the population by 20% anywhere, guess what? Prices are going to go up and wages are going to go down. Oh my God, did you know that imagine it's a city. Did you know the city of 50,000 people that got an extra 10,000 people, but that entire city banned anyone from becoming tradesmen or tradeswomen, and you all had to major in English? Do you know they got a housing shortage? Imagine that. You dumbass. I mean, the voters, not the politicians. Especially those of you who are poor but would like to work, the working poor. Oh, the Democrats said free shit. Let's flood the market with low skill, low talent labor. Oh my God, what happened to our wages? Fuck, man. Here we go. From Zero Hedge, which has more pop-ups than a teenager has zits. Largest trucking capacity purge in history is coming. So the market is getting bad, right? Oh, and wages would go down. Well, the freight industry is experiencing, Alex Patina should be on this. The freight industry is experiencing what experts describe as one of the most interesting times ever in freight, though unfortunately not in a positive way for most participants. Motor carriers and freight brokers across the spectrum are feeling significant pain from weak freight volumes and a rapidly changing operating climate. What we're witnessing appears to be a calm before a significant storm, with indicators pointing towards what would become the largest capacity washout in trucking history, with the risk of the market eliminating 600,000 active drivers. I wonder if Alex has experienced this. It's what the media reports, but then it's like, okay, what's happening on the ground? The largest capacity purge in history may be coming, bringing COVID-like spot rates. The difference this time is that there won't be a flood of immigrants created by Biden's open borders, which offered an endless supply of truck drivers. The capacity relief valve for shippers and brokers is forever shut. Is it forever shut? Or is it just the Democrat gets elected, we open it back up, and then we go through this ridiculous basic economics lesson again? Meaning carriers will have to pay up in terms of high. Oh, no. No, no, it's not true. No, don't know. Meaning carriers will have to pay up in terms of higher pay and bonuses for truck drivers. Capacity will be much harder to find. Oh, no, not jobs for Americans. Now, in defense of employers and immigrants, here's where we got to be honest. How many of you fuckwits thought truck driving was beneath you? Ew, how many of you girls like, ew, a truck driver, gross, right? Because you were all going to be Jessica Jason Christ of the suburbs and go save the world. You were too busy working for your USAID funded nonprofits. Freight volumes have dramatically decreased, with year-over-year figures showing a staggering 18% decline. This precipitous drop has created severe challenges. Freight volumes, right? So the demand is going down, but you have less immigrant labor to absorb this. No, it's going down, but the drop And labor, immigrant labor, is even more so. So now you might have to pay, oh no, what's that you thing you Democrats and leftists have been fighting for forever? A living wage? No. See, and here's what's going to be funny. Are you going to be a truck driver now? Or are you going to do well, I have a college degree. So it's been, I'm going to, here it is. Here's your answer. Ray over at Raymond Thoughts of Mine, some LinkedIn fuckwit got laid off, wrote an article about he wrote a 112,000 word book and he still can't find a job. Like, fuck you. Stop shooting up the white girl blood and thinking, I get to do whatever I want. And then the world will pay me $8,000 a year because I have the power of God. But knock it off. Hey, guys, here's your opportunity. You know, Fred Flintstone, he worked at the quarry, him and Barney. Homer worked a low-level job over at the nuclear power plant. They weren't complaining. They were like, oh, my God. I bet you more seriously, if you looked at the Flintstones, the worth of Fred and Barney as husbands and fathers was never questioned because they just work at the quarry. Hello, Mr. Slate. Right? It never came up because, they're honest, hardworking men. I bet you Betty and Wilma fucked them too. Well, they had to, didn't they? Yeah, they had kids. Pebbles and Bam Bam. Barney was Bam Bamming Betty. Absolutely. Are you guys gonna truck driving right here? Here we go. I know my audience. I know my team. We're like, let's do it. A couple of you even went to the railroads. You know, good, honest, hard work with good pay. Good pay. Yeah, Alex raised a family on his. Oh my God, the women looking for a stay-at-home wife with a one-income family. I introduce you, Alex Pitino, our truck driving Latino agent in the field. Alex, your wife should write a book called "Learn to Like a Real Man" or the real men, whatever. Volume for decreases, 18% decline, precipitous drop. Created severe challenges for motor carriers struggling to find loads and for freight brokers operating with minimal volume to sustain their business. The situation is particularly dire for brokers with spot market exposure, as the scarcity of freight leaves little room for profitability. I got to translate. So you have brokers and they line up the shippers with the drivers. Freight is a commodity with a spot price. There's a market price because they have spot market and they even have contracts written on it. So the scarcity of business, when you guys say freight, this is written by a guy in the trucking industry. So I got to translate for us normal people, and I don't even know what that means. The scarcity of freight, meaning the scarcity of business or the scarcity of capacity. I'm going to assume it's the scarcity of business leaves little room for profitability. Even the contract market presents significant challenges as many brokers have locked in business at unsustainably low rates while competing against asset-based carriers. This has created a system where many participants are underwater and is not sustainable. I guess they go out of business then. Small motor carriers face additional pressures, especially those that have hired non-domiciled CDL drivers who may now be unable to meet regulatory requirements such as speaking English and not murdering people. At the end of the day, everyone's a capitalist. I know a bunch of guys. Well, Chad talks about this guy where what is he? He's a white collar guy and he outsources he's big Republican, big conservative, but then he outsources all the jobs to the Philippines. And Chad's like, why do you, what really? You're all America, but then you hire. I think they're not friends anymore. The guy came out here to bury my cable, didn't speak English, which added 17 hours of lost labor between me, that company, and then the internet service provider because he didn't speak English. Fraud continues to accelerate as fraudsters have figured out how to reverse engineer highways and RMIS systems. Don't know what that means. I know this is zero hedge. You need 1950s standards of journalism. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. The average person needs to understand what's going on. This has caused a sharp increase in fraud, and brokers afraid of getting stung have learned the hard way and are no longer overriding even the most benign flags. This can sting even the most legitimate carriers if they receive false positives in compliance verification systems. Highways and RMIS systems? What does that mean? The basics of this article is, looks like demand for freight is going down. Why? We don't know. We didn't do the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Maybe Americans are buying less. Who knows? But the supply of labor, legal, illegal, or not, is gone down by even more. Any carrier that gets flagged by these fraud mitigation systems can find themselves locked out of participating in almost any brokerage freight. Okay, so there is a system to make sure that your drivers are licensed and can speak English. Is that it? And if you try to cheat that, now you're locked out of a system that you can bid on contracts with. Is that it? Have you thought about hiring Americans? Look, you want to hire whatever, Filipinos or Mexicans or whatever. I'm sure in Mexico and the Philippines, they're happy to have those jobs. They're not truck driving, and why don't you go there? Oh, we could save $1 an hour here, bro. Capacity purge and regulatory changes. The anticipated great purge of capacity. Okay, so this means our ability to handle the freight from several converging factors, most notably recent changes in U.S. immigration policy and enforcement, according to research from J.B. Hunt. These policy changes, particularly regarding non-domiciled commercial driver's license and English language proficiency requirements, are expected to remove between 5 and 12%. That's significant. Of CDL holders, 214,437,000 from the U.S. supply over the next 2 to 3 years. On September 26, 2025, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration issued an emergency ruling that immediately restricts the issuance and renewal of non-domiciled CDL. So you can still not be a citizen, you get your work permit, whatever, but you have to speak English. Dude, if I go to India, well, they also speak English over there. Okay, I go to China, I want to be a truck driver, but I don't understand Mandarin or Cantonese. Such simple shit. Such simple, basic shit. The FMCSA estimates that 97% of the current 200,000 non-domiciled holders will be wait, what? You just grabbed them right off the boat? Leading to their likely exit from the industry over the next 1 to 3 years. This represents approximately 5% of all registered CDLs in the United States. Now, you might say, well, 5%, that's not huge. Yeah, but it's not nothing either. Because let me tell you about margin percent at the margins, right? Shortages and therefore increased prices do not happen when 50% of the gas is removed from the market, although that would definitely bring in a huge increase. It's not linear, it's more exponential. So if you lose 1% of, let's say, truck drivers, then wages would probably go up by 1%, right? Because it's at the initial part of that loss. But then 2%, that's 2%. All right, well, now prices are not going to go up by 2%, they'll go up by 2.3, 2.5%. You go to 5%, you're starting to get that's kind of shortage. If gas supplies go down by 5% relative to demand, you're looking at a 20, 25% increase in price. So it's exponential, not linear. And it depends on the on the product. I'll give you another example. New York City, in terms of dating, there, depending on your age range, there's 5 to 10% more women in dating ages than there are men in New York City. You say, 5 and 10%, that means that, yeah, but that's enough to drastically change women's behavior, that they show up on time. And even though New York is a leftist shithole, the women treat their men a lot better there, at least in terms of being professional and showing up on time and going on dates. So whereas 5% may not seem like a lot, that's significant. It's not a crippling shortage, but it's enough. And you know what might happen? You might get paid more. Concurrently, stricter enforcement of English language proficiency regulations has resulted in 23,000 violations, with more than 5,000 resulting in out of service orders. According to industry analyst Avery Weiss, this enforcement alone could remove approximately 20,000 drivers annually from the workforce. When accounting for the overlap between drivers affected by non-domiciled CDL restrictions and ELP, English language proficiency enforcement, plus undocumented drivers and restrictions on new hires, the total at-risk population could exceed 600,000, representing 17% of active drivers. That's huge. That will result in increased wages. According to transportation economist Noel Perry, carriers that rely on immigrant labor or carriers that don't qualify under the new rules will likely go out of business. Oh, no. Oh, nosies. Those of you who are not hiring Americans, not paying living wages. Oh, no. It's just too bad. I will say, though, here's the problem. Okay, where are the American-born citizens that are going to take up those jobs? Are you all still believing the smoke blowing up your chute that you're going to make it with an MBA, bro? You're going to be a DEI director, bro. This is one problem. I knew any administration coming in were like, okay, we're going to clean up the illegal immigration thing. We're going to start putting jobs out there for Americans. Did you prepare the American children and young people? Did you prepare the American labor force to start taking these jobs? You didn't. No, you've been teaching them that men can get periods, boys have vaginas, and you are not, and above all else, you are still lying to these kids that somehow they're all going to go to college, they're all going to become great people, and work is beneath them. There isn't. So now you actually are going to have a shortage, because I don't think you think Tanner and Madison from Madison, Wisconsin, are going to show up and take these. They're not going to do that, because you've been lying to you. Like, my God, you're all Jessica and Jason Christ. You're all amazing. That's beneath you. Economic implications of the capacity purge. The combination of regulatory changes and prolonged freight recession conditions is creating an environment ripe for significant market disruption. Industry experts anticipate numerous bankruptcies among both carriers and brokers. By the way, you think, oh my God, these big business. No, this is a schmuck with a phone. I knew a guy who did brokering for airline flights, like minor ones, not big ones. You're just a schmuck with a phone. These are not companies. This is like influencers. In the coming months, as financial pressures mount, the market rationalization expected to follow this capacity purge will likely favor the largest asset carriers who have the resources to weather the storm and adapt to changing regulatory landscape. This represents a significant shift from the recent market dynamic where the availability of truck drivers supplied through immigration enabled many small operators to expand their fleets without adhering to traditional operational requirements. Let's read that again. This represents a significant shift from the recent market dynamic where the availability of truck drivers supplied through immigration enabled many small operators to expand their fleets without adhering to the traditional operating requirements. Like safety, English proficiency. The fact I have to explain why a drastic that's 17%, why a 17% flooding of a market of whatever labor group it is lowers wages, because you guys are so blind by this socialist idealism that America is going to take care of the whole world. We need immigrants to pay into Social Security. Doesn't that kind of just make them slaves then? We need other people to come here to pay our taxes. Is that what it is? Meanwhile, the domestic population is all on EBT, collecting welfare and demanding a student loan bailout. You think this is sustainable? As the market corrects, motor carriers will need to offer improved driver pay and incentives to attract qualified drivers from a diminishing pool of eligible candidates. Oh, no. The employers will have to pay more and treat their employees better? No. Women in New York will have to show up on time and treat their dates nice. No. Oh. Chefs will have to improve the quality of their food and dishes and customer service. No. This shift towards a more traditional supply-demand balance may ultimately lead to improved profitability for surviving characters, though the transition period will undoubtedly be challenging. Navigating the road ahead, freight path to recovery. The freight industry stands at the precipice of a transformative period. The anticipated capacity washout, driven by regulatory changes and sustained market weakness, will likely lead to accelerated spot rates and stabilizing contract rates as the market rebalances. While the timeline for this transition remains, I'm still curious why is truck capacity, why is demand for freight going down? What's happening there? That might be more indicative of an overall market slowdown and recession. While the timeline for this transition remains uncertain, the eventual outcome points towards a market that operates according to a more traditional supply and demand principles. You mean like uninterrupted by external forces or externalities, like flooding your market with foreign labor? It gets so tiring having to explain basic economic principles by people brainwashed with idealism. It doesn't matter, Marxist or not. I get sick and tired of explaining to full-grown adults that Santa doesn't exist. I get tired of explaining to, what would it be, 13th century alchemists that you cannot turn lead into gold. And then if you did, well, then the value of gold would go down. I get tired of it. What is it do? For shippers, this means preparing for potential rate volatility and capacity constraints. For carriers, especially larger ones that can navigate the regulatory landscapes, it represents an opportunity to return to more sustainable operating conditions after an extended period of market disruption. This is just me. This is just me. Using the guy, illegal or not, I don't know. Using the guy who didn't speak English as an example, and the managerial ineptitude of his American English-speaking boss. Every company, if you wish to weather not only the upcoming individual market storm or recession or long-term, it's sad, but you really need to get back to a good product at a fair price and quality control. Because if you increase your quality control, what's really threatening all of you companies, truck drivers or not, is mistakes. The one mistake the internet cable bearing company made cost us all 17 hours of lost labor. I'm going to imagine there's now 2 Indian truck drivers that rammed over and, manslaughtered, I guess is the appropriate term, people on the roads in the United States. I wonder how much just through communication errors the truck was driven to the wrong place. A friend of mine had her car delivered to Vegas by a Belarusian, some former Soviet driver. He didn't speak English that well. And I had to say, take a picture of where you are and email it to me or text it to me. And he did. I say, park here. And I drove the girl and the guy, or the girl and myself, out to the guy so she could get her car. That's 2 hours of human labor gone, not to mention the guy himself. I'm going to call him Boris. His name wasn't Boris, but let's just call him Boris. I'd imagine the same thing, and Alex could speak to this, where it's just communication problems and the freight gets delivered the wrong place. There's delays and all that. If something costs you time, that doesn't show up on an income statement because there is no money exchanged hands. But that doesn't mean it isn't a cost, and it doesn't take away from the efficiency and ultimate profitability of a firm. And here Doesn't matter if you're immigrant or not. Do you speak English? And corporations, sit the fuck down. Did you adequately train your employees? Did you follow protocol and procedure? We will call you when we're on the way to your house. At the end of the day, the reason that we had 17 hours in lost labor was because that the fuck with low IQ American owner of the company did not call me and say, hey, Pablo is coming out. His name wasn't Pablo. I don't know what it was. Pablo is coming out. Oh, I better get out there. Show him where the conduit is. That, I'd almost say that's just as much as the raw numbers of flooding a market with extra labor. And if you improve the quality of your profession, your industry, your company, meaning a good product at a fair price, you can pay higher wages and have less mistakes and therefore have more profit. You could survive it. But every one of you just like, let's outsource this, let's outsource that. You don't think about the long-term costs. You really don't. Or the mistake costs. Preparing for if volume pops, which doesn't exist right now, hold on to your hat. It's going to be one of the best freight markets that carriers have seen in a long time. Oh no, not truck drivers making more, not American truck drivers making more money. Anything but. While the road to that point will be challenging, the industry may ultimately emerge stronger and more stable once this unprecedented capacity purge has run its course. You just can't take care of your own in this country. We got to make the liberal white women happy where we take care of the rest of the world and do good feelings for good things. Thaddeus McDicksuck IV, MBA. Now, he's going to lay it down. He has an MBA, so he's going to know. Hi, Cappy. Love the show. Do you have Professor Fuxwick's contact info? I'd like to do my PhD under him. Tell him I'm an MBA from the Carlson School of Management. It's a great school. Thank you. Thaddeus McDicksuck, what do you think the solution to this problem would be? It would be cut costs, right? Cut costs. And what we could call the threadbare trucking policy, where you run the truck tire. We could save so much money, bro, if we run the truck tires till when you start seeing the wires, the wire policy, right? Because if you could cut costs and just run the tires down to the wire, you save money. And I got an idea. Why should truck drivers sleep? They should just run 24. If we just have them drive for 24, 7 days a week, bro, imagine the cost savings, bro. Ken Rose for $2. He says, hello. Thank you, Ken. There you go. Economics in action. I just don't care. I don't care because it's not like we trained our American population, our youth, to like embrace real jobs. I hope the current, like Alex and the gang, they get higher wages. I hope so. But I don't see, oh my God, we need truck drivers in here. And the corporations are at fault too. You're always chasing the cheapest dollar. You're always cheap. And now you have like an unstable, low efficacy labor pool or significant percentage of it. I could see this happening in every field, regardless of whether there's domestic labor willing and able to drive a truck or work on the railroads. They're just not going to increase their prices. They're really not. And you corporations, just as it's going to take forever starting at K through 12 to start training the young kids today that no, a truck driving job is not beneath you. That's going to take years. It's going to take years for you guys to understand you need training programs. And no, you just don't pay the least amount of money. Not only do you pay a fair wage to keep them there, you give them training so they can do the fucking job. I remember a couple of buddies of mine during the Great Recession, they went and they tried to go get their CDL. Well, they had to go pay for it. Now, some carriers will pay for it, but then you got to have a contract to go work for that. I'm just like, I understand. Maybe, well, I guess if you're paying for it, yeah, you got to, okay, I can see that. But it shouldn't every truck driving, I guess it should be truck driving schools because not every carrier can afford to run their own truck driving school, but maybe pay for it. Never mind. Not my problem. All right. See you guys later. Toodles.